Well, how I break it up in the definitive guide to kettlebell juggling is there's a whole bunch of different modules with all the different skills, and they're broken up into like different components or parts where they're at. So let's just say we're starting with the front flips. I call them front flips because they're right in front of your body. It's the same path in which you would do a kettlebell swing. So to start with here, you start with two hands. Not in many skills do we use two hands with kettlebell juggling. Usually you're switching to one, but that's where you get started with two hands, and you are doing a swing. You just let it go and get it to flip around. Really kind of hard to describe just by talking about it, but there are plenty of videos available and all that stuff. So we get this normal flip going. You can also with two hands then do a reverse flip. So this is called reverse flip because the handle is going the opposite way in which it normally would want to spin. So we've got that skill now with two hands. Let's switch to one hand, and with this you can do alternating. And in this case, when you're alternating hands, so you let go with one, it does the flip, you catch with the other. That's a little easier than actually letting go with the hand, letting it flip around, and then catching it with the same hand. So here we have made it harder by switching from two hands to one, and then you can do the alternating hand to the single hand. Now from here, we can change the position or how we rotate the kettlebell, doing the helicopter spins where the handle is rotating around the side rather than up and over. We can change the alignment of the handle, so it's what I call the hammer position because it's like a hammer curl, and flipping it that way or a reverse of it. All these are built on that basic flip, which is built on the basic swing. You're just increasing the difficulty of the skill of the movement. And from there, then you're starting to do swings outside your body, which again is another way of increasing it, and move up into snatches, cleans, all sorts of things. But that's an idea of how you progress with these skills. It's between one skill and the next, it's usually not that big of a jump in difficulty,
Right.
but there are so many different things you can do. And from one skill to advanced skill, that may be 100 jumps in difficulty. But if you go along the way, it's not that difficult to do.
So aside from being a great workout to provide coordination, your hand-eye coordination, cardiovascular, core strength, reduce the chance of injuries over time, let's talk about how sore you can get by kettlebell juggling. Because I know that everybody out there wants to build some muscle and do some different things and are looking for new ways to get sore. As we've already evidenced, you have your spinal erectors built from doing tons of kettlebell juggling. But what else have you noticed? And I'll patch in kind of with what I've noticed on my body as well when I juggle a lot.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the spinal erectors, some people listening to this, depending on how they've been trained with kettlebells, they say, "Oh, your lower back's getting sore when you're doing the swings and the kettlebell juggling." Well, one of the things that's very important with kettlebell juggling is because it's so chaotic with the movement, you can't stick in that one fine groove in which you could just load your hips rather than your back at all and really take that out of the movement. Because you're doing this chaotic movement, it's loading in different ways, and so it does what we talked about before, in injury proofing your body, in strengthening those components, those areas that need to be strengthened. So soreness, I actually don't really get sore much anymore, but when you're starting out, something I always found that was interesting was when I'd take a break from kettlebell juggling for a while, but then I come back to it, the one thing that would always get sore were my biceps. It's from doing these outside the body swings where you're doing like a figure eight sort of pattern under the leg and then an uppercut movement, or an outside swing where the drive is still coming largely from the legs, but your arm is being used as well in the movement. And so the biceps would get more sore than anything else.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's something I've observed as well, is when I start out with a heavier weight, or when I haven't been kettlebell juggling for a while, or the first time I ever did those underleg passes, I mean, it felt like I had done like 1,000 curls, back in the bodybuilding days. And so, I mean, if you guys want athletic development, explosive power, and still get to work your muscles out at the same time, you don't have to cut out all the curls in the world. You replace them with some kettlebell juggling stuff, and you can build some really strong, powerful muscles at the same time you're having fun. You're getting your cardiovascular stuff moving forward as well. So you have some interesting views on mental training, and I'm not going to go super deep into the mental side of things, but let's take a moment to talk about the brain and how it kind of works, and how traditional exercise can kind of trap the brain in a certain box and a movement pattern, and more complex exercise like kettlebell juggling can actually improve the way you move for other things than just kettlebell juggling.
Okay, that's an interesting question. With kettlebell juggling, because there are so many different movements, you're really engaging muscles that aren't used at all in most forms of traditional exercise. For instance, if you're doing a move where it's the over the shoulder toss or over the shoulder flip, you're basically, while the legs are involved in generating the power for the movement, you're taking your arm and throwing it up behind. And if you anybody listening is familiar with a hammer lock, you're basically putting your arm in that same position. So you are working the shoulder, ranges of motions, all the muscles in your arm, as well as back through the legs, all in certain ways that just don't get worked by other things. So this is true of all the different movements in all sorts of different ways. So actually, just by working this wide range of movement, not only are you accessing different parts of your body, but it could be said you're accessing more of your brain. You're doing flowing movements, and one thing along with the mental training is learning how the energies of the body work. In our brain, we have the left and right hemisphere. Most people are familiar with this. The left brain really logical, right brain is more artsy and everything. But really, in order to be better of a person at basically everything, you want your brain synchronized. You want information crossing over from the left side to the right side, and actually doing sort of flowing movements where you're tracing figure eight patterns or moving from one side to the other. This is actually going to help your brain to do that. So I'm not saying kettlebell juggling will make you smarter, but it will improve your coordination. You'll develop very fast reflexes, and you may find yourself, after having practiced this a little bit, like if something falls, that you just reach out and grab it before you even know what's happened.
Sure, I've noticed some reflexes myself that kind of get better the more juggling stuff that I do. Okay, so we've covered cardio, we've covered everything. Let's talk about flow state, because what most people in the kettlebell community are all concerned with rapid hip extension and maximum breathing and all this stuff. Let's start with, what's your take on perfect form?
Okay. The way I see form is that it really depends on what you're going for, and what's perfect for one person may not be perfect for another. So if we just look at the swing, if you're really working on developing like maximum power, you can artificially do certain things and tense up and really make it explosive, even though you're working with a lightweight, and that's fine for developing that explosive power. That form isn't the perfect form, because there are different applications. If you're looking to be able to relax with a movement, if you want to go 1,000 swings, you're not going to be able to do that at all. You need to learn to relax and flow with the movement. Now with kettlebell juggling, it's largely more of that flow, because you get to a point where you're so good at the skills that you don't have to consciously think about doing them so much. You can effortlessly go from one move to another, to the point where you can do it blindfolded. You can do it while talking to other people, and your body just knows where it needs to go. You're making the kettlebell go in certain places, so not just so that you can accomplish that move, but you're also setting up the next move that you want to do. And I think that's a level that most people haven't achieved with kettlebell juggling.
Sure, sure. That's so important, because, like you said, you get trapped in one system, and you just won't make any more progress with it. Well, why don't we go over your new program that you're coming out with, the Definitive Guide to Kettlebell Juggling, and let's kind of take it step by step, kind of what the whole outline is going to look like and what you're offering with the package.